Block 102 in Salem, Massachusetts in the 1800s had a ridiculous amount of drama. Similar to the secrets, crimes, and dysfunctional relationships of the residents of Wisteria Lane on the ABC drama Desperate Housewives, the residents of this Salem neighborhood dealt with all of those things as well. Except these characters experiencing this drama were the men and not the housewives. Salem in the late 1700s and early 1800s was one of the wealthiest cities in America. Its merchants were sailing around the world, trading with China, India, and the West Indies. An incredible amount of wealth poured rapidly into the city, resulting in ornate mansions being built where modest homes were previously located, close to the South River and the wharfs along Salem Harbor. Streets like Chestnut, Essex, and Washington became lined with elegant homes filled with expensive furnishings and decor. This video is the first in a two-part series where we take a look at 10 of the homes in Salem in the year 1890. We'll look at old photos of these houses and find them on the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps, where we can see what their surroundings look like at that time and then compare it to recent images. Our first stop is the Crowninshield Bentley house, which was built in 1727 by sea captain John Crowninshield. He lived here until he passed away at sea. For the next 35 years, his widow rented out rooms in the house to earn a living. She had a wide assortment of renters, but none as famous as Reverend William Bentley. Bentley rented 2 rooms on the second floor and had his rooms packed to the ceiling with a library of thousands of books, artifacts, paintings, and even some weird stuff like an armadillo skeleton and a human skull. Bentley kept detailed journals about everyday life in Salem. He wrote about ship arrivals, conversations he had with neighbors, and what was happening around town. He also took detailed notes of the homes being built in the neighborhood around him. Because of his notes, we know what Salem felt like during the early 1800s. The Crowninshield home was built in the Georgian style with its symmetry and balanced proportions. The house was originally located at 106 Essex Street, but was moved to its current location in 1959 at 126 Essex Street in order to avoid demolition. This house shows up on page 9 of the 1890 Sanborn map at the intersection of Essex and Union Streets. Just like many of the homes in Salem, this house was built very close to the curb. There was no front yard. Something interesting to note in the Sanborn map is that this house was divided in two. One half of the house was a dwelling and the other half was a store. I found this photo from the 1890s and you can clearly see there were 2 doors on this building, confirming what the Sanborn map shows. There's even a little girl peering into one of the windows of the shop. Even though the house was eventually moved, the footprint of this home is the same back then as it is today when you look at the Google map. Today, it stands near the Peabody Essex Museum and is open for tours during the summer and fall months. Right next door is the Gardner-Pingree House. This house was built in 1804 for the wealthy merchant John Gardner, who is the nephew of Elias Derby, Salem's most prominent merchant and one of America's first millionaires. Gardner wanted a house that would showcase his incredible wealth, so he hired Samuel McIntyre to design a federal-style townhouse in the heart of downtown Salem in an up-and-coming neighborhood adjacent to Washington Square, or Salem Common as it's known today. The details carved into the woodwork show McIntyre's talent. Many consider this home to be a masterpiece of federal architecture and this to be McIntyre's finest and best preserved designs. While this mansion is known for its elegance, it's also remembered just as much for a darker chapter. On April 6, 1830, Captain Joseph White was killed here in his bed by the Crowninshield brothers, who had been hired to murder the captain and steal his will. The captain was 83 years old. The murder shocked Salem and led to a trial that gained national attention. The case even inspired writers like Edgar Allan Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Going back to page 9 of the map, we see this house. It's clearly marked as being built of brick, 3 stories, with windows all the way up to the 3rd story, and a back portion where half is 2 stories and the other half is 1 story. As with other large houses of the time, this one also had a stable in the backyard made of brick, which was pretty fancy considering so many of the homes in Salem were built of wood frame. Today, this house is open to the public as a museum. Right next door is the John Tucker Daland House at 136 Essex Street. This house was built in 1851 for Daland, a prosperous merchant. The house was built in the Italianate style, which was the trend at the time. You'll notice the rounded arches and decorative brackets. The Dalands lived here in this house until 1885, when it was acquired by the Essex Institute. The house was turned into business offices and was eventually connected to the adjacent Plummer Hall. On page 9 of the Sanborn map, we can see here that the Daland House has already been renamed as the Essex Institute. It looks like there's a wooden porch that connects it to the Plummer Hall. Eventually, the two buildings were connected, as you can see here on this Google satellite image. Today, the Daland House is part of the Peabody Essex Museum and serves as an office and meeting space. Looking over the Washington Square is the Andrew-Safford House, which was built in 1818. The mansion was built by John Andrew, a Salem merchant who specialized in the fur trade with Russia. He became very wealthy and wanted the best house money could buy. At the time, people said it was the most expensive house in New England. Its size and detail make it stand out, and its location on the square gave it plenty of visibility. The home was a 3-story Federal-style mansion with an adjoining stable. On the left side of the house is a porch with columns going all the way up to the 3 stories that overlooks the especially large lot. Although we don't know who was the architect of this home, we do have a detailed account of this home's construction by way of a neighbor, Reverend William Bentley. Eventually, John Andrew had financial issues which led him to being in considerable debt by the time he died. The house stayed in his family for several more decades before it was eventually sold to various owners and was bought by James Safford. Multiple generations of the Safford family lived in this house until it was purchased by the Essex Institute. This mansion shows up on page 9 of the 1890 Sanborn map. You can even tell on the map that there's the porch on the side. It's colored in yellow, and the 3 indicates the porch is open to the entire height of the 3-story house. The entirety of the stable isn't shown since it's in the fold of the map binding, but you can see how these buildings look like they're attached. Notice too how the buildings behind the home seem really close to the stable. We'll come back to that in a moment. A fun thing I did notice on this map is that on the other side of the block in 1890, there was an ice cream shop. Today, the Andrew-Safford House is rented out for private functions, and the adjoining carriage house is home to an ice cream shop. So I guess people in Salem have always enjoyed their ice cream. Right behind the Andrew-Safford's carriage house is the Daniel Bray House, located at 1 Brown Street. The house was built in 1766 by Daniel Bray's father, Nathaniel. 40 years later, Daniel inherited the house and renovated it to the Georgian style. For Daniel, this was something to be proud of, as he worked as a rigger in the maritime industry doing manual labor, unlike many of his neighbors who were extremely wealthy from owning and managing businesses. At the time, Daniel's house reflected the more modest homes of seafaring families. 13 years after Bray inherited the house, his next-door neighbor, Andrew-Safford, built his mega mansion only 2 feet away from Daniel's home, blocking the view of Washington Square. Well, let me be more specific. Safford didn't build his house that close to Daniel's house. He built his 2-story stable and carriage house that close, which almost seems a little bit worse to me. Imagine living in a home for that long and investing your hard-earned money to renovate it only for your neighbor to build a mega mansion 2 feet away, forever blocking the view from your kitchen window. In a blatant show of gentrification, John Andrew built his mega mansion mere feet away from the Daniel Bray home, which is ironic given how large his lot was and how he could have built his house and stable in the center of the lot and had plenty of room on all sides. When we look at the Sanborn map again, we can definitely see the closeness of the 2 buildings and even the angle and how it gets closer towards the rear of the house. Google satellite images shows the exact same thing. But there's actually more to this story, and I definitely didn't see this one coming. Early one morning in April 1830, Daniel Bray was looking out the rear window of his house, which had a clear view of the Gardner-Pingree House. So he's just there one morning, drinking his coffee, minding his own business, and he sees this guy he knows, Richard Crowninshield, breaking in through a rear window of the house. When news broke later that morning that Captain Joseph White had been murdered in his bed, Daniel knew what he had witnessed. He instantly became a material fact witness for the prosecution. This neighborhood had some serious stuff going on in the 1800s. Over the years, the Bray house was turned into several stores, including a grocery store, and large windows were installed on the front for customers to see the goods. Eventually, this home was bought by the Essex Institute, and a considerable amount of studying and research was done on the house to determine its original construction and paint colors. The shop windows on the front of the home were removed and replaced with windows that would have been similar to the original windows, along with the original paint colors of the home. Well, that was quite a walk through Block 102 in Salem. I can tell you that I had no idea that I would come across this much drama when I started researching for this video. What I think is so awesome is that you can really understand so much more of the stories by seeing the maps and where the houses were located and how far away the neighbors were from each other. It just really brings it to life. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you would like and subscribe to my channel. I make videos about the stories of cities found on old Sanborn Fire Insurance maps. I'll be posting part 2 of this series soon, so make sure you check that out. As always, thanks for stopping by. Hey guys, I wanted to remind you that I have a shop where you can buy reprints of the maps I feature on this channel. I'll include a link to the 1890 Salem map in the description below. Also, I think page 9 would make a great conversation piece for the real history buff, and I can custom print that for you. In my shop, just click on this featured product at the top of the page for personalized Sanborn map and type in 1890 Salem MA page 9. Within about a week or week and a half, you'll have your own copy of this map to hang in your house.